General Alfred Jodl once remarked about George Patton, calling him the American Aryan. Bold and audacious, Patton favoured sweeping manoeuvres and took significant risks, reaping major victories in return. Yet among the German High Command, opinions of the Allied leadership were far from uniform, ranging from begrudging respect to outright dismissal, largely influenced by battlefield encounters and entrenched ideological biases. These contrasting views offer a window into the strategic mindset of those who fought against the Allies. By exploring how German generals perceived their counterparts, we gain deeper insight into the shifting opinions that emerged as World War II progressed. Among the Allied commanders, one figure consistently captured the attention of the German leadership, a general whose aggression and relentless drive for victory earned him a reluctant admiration. That man was General Patton, the flamboyant American commander, seen by many German officers as a fierce and kindred adversary. Some German commanders even went so far as to consider General Patton the most German of the Allied leaders. But what exactly did they mean by that? Patton's style of warfare mirrored key elements of the German military doctrine. He prioritised constant movement, rapid advances, and overwhelming force. This approach bore a striking resemblance to the German blitzkrieg tactics. Patton's disdain for static, trench-based warfare was well known. In one memorable incident, he infamously urinated into a trench meant for protection, declaring that no one would use it now. His rejection of fixed positions resonated with German military leaders, who similarly valued mobility and fluid battle lines. Even Heinz Guderian, the mastermind behind Germany's blitzkrieg strategy, couldn't help but respect Patton's tactical skill. He once remarked, "I hear much about General Patton, and from a tank specialist point of view, I must congratulate him on his campaign. He acted just as I would have, had I been in his place." Patton's reputation among German commanders extended beyond just figures like Guderian. General Günther Blumentritt, a key strategist in the invasions of France and Poland, regarded Patton as the most aggressive armoured commander among the Allies. He noted that Patton's operations impressed us enormously, likely because his approach aligned with their own concept of the classical military leader. However, not all German commanders shared this high opinion. Some viewed Patton as more of a brilliant tactician than a strategic mastermind, preferring to focus on figures like Montgomery and Eisenhower when it came to grand strategy. Patton's command style also bore similarities to the German concept of Auftragstaktik, or mission-type orders, where commanders issued broad directives and trusted their subordinates to execute them using their own initiative. Patton himself once said, "Never tell people how to do things, tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity." Yet for all the admiration, there was criticism as well. Some German officers believed that Patton's rapid advance in Sicily was driven more by personal glory than by strategic necessity. Military historian Harry Yadi even described Patton's rush to Messina as a display of empty glory. It's important to remember that the Germans had a tradition of rigorous evaluation. They weren't easily impressed by a single successful campaign, regardless of its impact. Despite his reputation as an aggressive and effective commander, Patton didn't dominate the minds of German generals as much as one might assume. Some German military historians noted that while Patton's logistical achievements were impressive, they were often overshadowed by the immense resources available to the Allies. This contributed to the perception that Allied victories were more the result of overwhelming material superiority than individual brilliance. As such, while Patton was respected for his bold tactics and mobility-centric strategies, the German view of him was more complex. They saw in him a reflection of their own military philosophy, but also recognised that he benefited from America's vast industrial power. This paradox, an American general with a German-style approach to warfare, made Patton a fascinating figure to his enemies, one they both admired and sought to understand. While Patton earned respect for his aggressive manoeuvres, the German view of British leadership was notably different. Contrary to the belief that the Germans saw their British adversaries as weak, the reality was more nuanced. German generals often held a surprising degree of respect for British forces, particularly for their resilience and professionalism. General Siegfried Westphal, a high-ranking German officer, once commented that the hardest, toughest in attack and most persistent in defence were the British divisions. This wasn't mere lip service. German military assessments frequently praised the consistency of British troops and their ability to avoid failures in crucial battles. Yet despite this admiration for British soldiers, German commanders viewed British leadership as overly cautious. In the fast-paced realm of mechanised warfare, hesitation could be fatal. Erwin Rommel, the famed Desert Fox, voiced his frustration to captured British officers after the siege of Tobruk, saying, "Gentlemen, you have fought like lions and been led by donkeys." This sharp critique of British command highlighted the tension between the fighting spirit of their troops and the perceived conservatism of their leaders. Germany's perspective on Britain during World War II was far more complex than it might seem. Many German leaders viewed the British as potential allies, particularly due to their shared racial ideology. However, the conflict between them left Hitler and his generals grappling with respect for Britain's resilience and a strategic necessity to defeat them. German commanders often prepared for prolonged and tough engagements when facing British forces, knowing that even if they gained the upper hand, the British were known for digging in and fighting with determination. This respect, however, was tempered by a belief that British leadership was overly cautious, leading German forces to occasionally take risks, betting on slow British responses. Sometimes these gambles paid off, but when the British proved more adept than anticipated, they backfired. One area where German respect for British capabilities was especially evident was in the air war. Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe, begrudgingly acknowledged British technological prowess. He famously commented on the Mosquito, a wooden aircraft, saying, "It makes me furious when I see the Mosquito. The British build a beautiful wooden aircraft, and now they've increased its speed yet again." This admiration for British innovation directly influenced German aircraft development throughout the war. The Germans' perspective on British forces was a blend of respect, frustration, and reluctant admiration. They saw their opponents as resilient and professional, yet sometimes held back by overly cautious leadership. This complex view shaped German strategy and tactics throughout the war, leading to key decisions on the battlefield. While German views on the British and American forces were layered and nuanced, their perception of the Soviet military underwent a dramatic transformation as the war progressed. Early in Operation Barbarossa, many German commanders underestimated the Soviet Union, seeing it as a poorly led and poorly equipped adversary. Nazi ideology reinforced this underestimation, viewing Slavic peoples as inferior. German officers initially believed that the Soviet forces would crumble under the weight of the Wehrmacht's superior tactics and technology. However, as the war dragged on and the Soviets demonstrated their resilience, this perception shifted dramatically. German commanders encountered fierce resistance, and the Red Army quickly adapted, becoming a formidable opponent. Field Marshal Paul Ludwig Ewald von Kleist reflected on this shift, stating, "From the very beginning, the Russians proved themselves first-class warriors. Our success in the early months of the war was due to superior training, but as they gained experience, the Russians became first-rate soldiers, fighting with exceptional perseverance." The Battle of Stalingrad marked a significant turning point, not only in the war itself, but in German perceptions of the Soviet forces. The Red Army's ability to encircle and destroy an entire German army shattered any lingering belief in Soviet inferiority. As the Soviets mounted successful counteroffensives, German commanders found themselves facing an enemy that was not only numerous, but increasingly skilled. General Franz Halder, Chief of Staff of the Army High Command, remarked on the Soviet army, "It seems the enemy, under the initiative of new command, and perhaps influenced by England, is making every effort to hold the front line and prevent us from advancing further east. Russian troops are fighting with great tenacity." This shift in perception had profound strategic consequences. The confidence that characterized the early stages of Operation Barbarossa gave way to a more cautious approach as German forces realized they were facing an enemy capable of matching and eventually surpassing their own military strength. While some German officers held on to their ideological biases longer than others, by the time Soviet forces were advancing towards Berlin, even the most hardened believers in Nazi racial theories were forced to acknowledge the reality of Soviet military power. Interestingly, German views on their Allied adversaries did not fade with the war's end. Insights from German generals regarding their opponents have continued to influence modern military strategies. For example, the German admiration for British resilience has led many modern armies to emphasize troop morale and endurance. Similarly, concerns about Soviet numerical superiority have driven NATO to invest heavily in technological advancements. Patton's aggressive, bold tactics have left a lasting legacy on mechanized warfare doctrine. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell.